Hello, welcome to the Online Field Training Contract Basics Part 3. I'm Dr. Ann Riley, Field Education Coordinator. In this segment, we'll be focused on the contract as a tool for evaluating the competence of the student. I invite you also to have the website pulled up, socialwork.ou.edu/Norman Forms. Again, we will use the contract, we will use training handouts, contract training handout examples on evaluations, and also for purposes of demonstration, the 5816 sample contract. As we look at this contract, I want to take us now to the evaluation instrument information. So, evaluation instrument. And the text information is here. Remember, the contract has two purposes. One is the work plan at the beginning of each semester or practicum course, and the second is for evaluation purposes. Please read through this information because it will reinforce the training. As we look at the competency scale, we realize that we're not grading in the standard A, B, C, D, F. Instead, we are rating each student's progress in terms of their progress toward competency. I want to review each of these with you. Advanced competency is the expert level. The student expertly demonstrates awareness, knowledge, and skills as a social work intern. For a student to warrant this rating, they would typically have brought with them a great deal of professional practice skills, so their work in practicum is relevant to what they've already brought in. Most of our students are experiencing new learning, so the competency rating for C, consistently demonstrating awareness, knowledge, and skills as a social work intern, is more relevant typically. EC, emerging competence, where many of our students are at the beginning of practicum, is defined as the demonstration of beginning awareness and skills. So the emerging competence, the EC rating, the C rating are most common for students overall. Let me reinforce the point that this is not an overall rating for them. However, the rating scale is used for each of the 13 competencies throughout the contract. Let's talk about these two final ratings. Insufficient progress is defined as rarely demonstrates awareness, knowledge, and skills. Unacceptable progress, they never demonstrate or do not demonstrate competence. A UP rating, unacceptable progress, would be an alarming circumstance that would likely lead to termination. There's a rubric for grading within the Field Education Manual that discusses this further. For either of these, the UP or the IP, insufficient progress, the faculty liaison must be notified. If a student receives an insufficient progress in one or two items, a PIP, Performance Improvement Plan, would be constructed with the help of the liaison to specify what the student needs to do and within what time frame to improve their practice. Again, as always, call the liaison for any concerns. Okay, so let's look at one of our first examples. There's that rating scale. Alrighty, if we look at professional identity, so in the contract, when it's in IPT, the field instructor will see here is a drop down of options with the ratings. So the field instructor is to rate their student. Let's say they rate them as an EC competence, okay? They'll choose it on the contract in IPT. Then they'll come down to the two at the bottom. These two options, evidence to support ratings and strategies to increase competence. Now, the evidence to support ratings is not optional. It's essential for the field instructor to complete, although the strategies are only utilized if necessary or desired. For the evidence section, the question is, how has the field instructor arrived at their assessment? This should be through direct student observation with clients, through written documentation, and or through reported observations from other staff or clients. The narrative goes here to support the field instructor's rating of the student on this competence. The strategies to increase competence are an as-needed category. It's not necessary to complete this for each competence throughout the contract. It's typically utilized for students who have some struggles, or it can be for a student who wants to improve and is asking for some specifics. So if needed, certainly provide strategies to help the student to give them specific feedback for growth. It will be utilized for any student and for any competency where a PIP is related. Okay, I want to look at some examples for the evidence for ratings. I'm going to go back here. Contract handout examples for evaluation. These are going to be practice-related examples. Here's one for the preparation stage of practice. So the work plan is completed and the evidence is listed here as the basis for their assessment of the student. Looking back at the PowerPoint briefly, let me show you something else that's relevant to the practice section only. All right, practice. It's pretty loaded, right? 5 different components. This is the meat and potatoes of social work practice. Excuse me, vegetarians. Shall we say the tofu and potatoes instead? Okay, so there are 5 competencies for the practice section. There's preparation, engagement, assessment, intervention, and evaluation. So for each of these within the practice section only, we also want to know what the student's level of learning has been. What's been involved. So in addition to the rating, the field instructor will mark on the contract and let us know if the student was involved in reading information, shadowing, did they share responsibility, did they take full responsibility for a project, or for leadership in organizing, or for leadership in implementing. As you can see, these represent a developmental learning that occurs in practicum, since practicum is a developmental process. As you can see, this helps us to track the students' learning opportunities. A delayed option is also available in the event they did not engage in any of these yet. Some of the practice competencies might be delayed for the first course, much more so than for the second. There shouldn't be any that are left to be involved in the second. So let me go back to the handout. For practice again, under engagement. So in this case, I believe the student is maybe an EC rating. They're emerging in their competence. And a brief evidence is provided here, but also a strategy. So the strategy is provided to increase their comfort level and confidence in working with veterans and in learning about the culture. To conduct the evaluations, then the field instructor works all the way through the contract, identifying the rating and then the evidence to support the rating and incorporating strategies as necessary for each of these, plus the learning levels that were utilized. And so you may need to refer back to the key to determine what these learning levels are. Please list any and all. If a student read and shadowed and was a part of the leadership, please note all of those. The field instructor can accomplish evaluation in this process in a variety of ways as they're in charge of it. They can complete the evaluation on their own. They can include the student by doing it together. They can have the student provide a self-evaluation for discussion and/or comparison. And they may consult with other staff, especially if a preceptor is part of the process. So there are different ways to complete this evaluation process. When you get to the end of the contract, then, there's a summary section to be completed as well. The field instructor summarizes the student's primary responsibilities, their achievements, their strengths, and limitations. And a text box will be available in each of these locations for the field instructor in the IPT contract. The student then completes their own comments, and the field liaison will have a text box to provide theirs as well. The grade is recommended as satisfactory or unsatisfactory. Again, a rubric is available within the field education manual. Keep in mind, field instructors, that the grade you recommend is critical, but what's most important, honestly, is the evaluation to support the ratings that you provide for each of these. This really helps describe the student's involvement in their learning. Ultimately, I am the instructor of record for all courses, and so I will confer the grade here at the School of Social Work. If there's any consultation that we need to have related to a student's grade or issues, please let us know about concerns before the end of the semester, before we get to the evaluation stage. We really want to be able to help. Okay, we have just looked at the online field contract training basics for social work practicum. The field education program wants to support you because you're important to us and to the profession. We appreciate you and your commitment. Thank you from all of us. Now, take a few minutes to answer the quiz that follows. This will confirm your completion of this required training course for practicum. Assuming you're successful, we'll see you at the upcoming training session.